They told me Sheriff Rowan Hale was a hero, that he kept our small town safe with steady hands and a badge polished by honor. But the first night I followed his call into the woods, I saw the truth. The rogues weren't just hunting us. They weren't just killing. They were leaving messages. Claw-marked warnings burned into trees, blood pooled like symbols around the bodies. And Rowan? He wasn't just the sheriff chasing them down. He had once led them. And worse than all of that, my wolf whispered the one truth I couldn't fight. He was my fated mate. Tell me, what would you do if the man sworn to protect you was the one who could destroy you? If you believe fate can be cruel, hit subscribe. Because this is the story of how love nearly unmade me, and how betrayal carved scars deeper than any claw. My name is Lila Arden. I'm 26, a nurse in a mountain town so small you can cross it in 15 minutes if the lights are green. To my neighbors, I'm the girl who works double shifts at the clinic, who lives above the old bookstore, who keeps to herself. What they don't know is that I'm not just human. Beneath my skin lies a wolf I've chained for 10 long years. I made myself a promise the night flames swallowed my family's cabin and left me with a scar twisting across my ribs. Never shift again. Never let anyone see what you are. Wolves bring nothing but ruin. So I've lived quiet, ordinary, or at least I pretended. But the forest doesn't forget what you are. It was close to midnight when the call came. I'd been finishing inventory at the clinic, humming to myself just to keep the silence from pressing too hard, when my phone buzzed. Sheriff requests medical presence. Urgent. Pine Hollow. My stomach knotted. Pine Hollow. The stretch of woods where locals whispered rogues still roamed, where children dared each other to sneak after dark, and never did. I should have stayed home. Should have told myself I wasn't paid enough to step into danger. But duty runs deep in me. Maybe too deep. The air turned colder as I drove out. Pines pressed thick on either side of the gravel road, their shadows cutting across my headlights like claws. By the time I reached the clearing, I smelled it before I saw it. Blood. Sharp and metallic. Thick enough that my wolf stirred against the chains of my will, restless and hungry. Red-blue lights from deputies' trucks painted the trees in dizzying flashes. Men shifted uneasily, hands on weapons, eyes scanning the shadows. And there, at the center, was him. Sheriff Rowan Hale. I'd seen him around town before, of course. Broad shoulders, dark jacket that somehow fit like armor, hair falling in a way too deliberate to be careless. But it was his eyes that made people fall quiet. Silver gray, steady, as if they could see through excuses, and straight to the heart. Tonight, they cut through me. He crouched by the body, fingers gloved but trembling slightly as they hovered above the victim's chest. Deep claw marks raked across the man's torso, a wound no human could have made. And then Rowan looked up. Our gazes locked, and the world tilted. Heat snapped up my spine, sharp and undeniable. My wolf lunged inside me, not in fear, but recognition. The mate bond. My breath caught. No, no, no. I must have whispered it aloud because his head tilted and something flared in his gaze. Rowan rose, slow, deliberate. Even with the chaos of deputies murmuring around us, it felt like the whole clearing hushed. His voice carried across the space, calm, commanding, yet threaded with a pull that tightened in my chest. You shouldn't be here, Lila. The way he said my name, like he'd known it forever, made my pulse slam harder. I should have looked away, should have walked back to my car and never turned around. But my body wouldn't listen. And as he stepped closer, I realized the truth that chilled me more than the bodies, more than the blood. If Rowan Hale was my mate, then fate had bound me to the one man in this town who was more dangerous than the monsters in the trees. I tried to keep my distance from Rowan after that night, but the mate bond doesn't respect walls or silence or reason. It burns. It lingers. And once it awakens, it finds ways to pull you closer. The very next morning, I was at the clinic, bleary-eyed from lack of sleep, trying to distract myself with paperwork. But the scent hit me first. Pine smoke and leather, threaded with something darker, a scent that made my scar ache. I didn't have to look up to know he was there. Rowan Hale filled the doorway like the room belonged to him. No uniform today, just a dark Henley and worn jeans. But authority clung to him anyway. His silver eyes caught mine, steady, unreadable. Lila. The way he said my name again, too familiar, too certain. My pen slipped from my hand. I tried for casual. Sheriff? What brings you here? His lips curved, not into a smile but something sharper. You were in Pine Hollow last night. You saw the bodies. I forced a shrug. I was there as medical support, nothing more. Don't lie to me. His voice lowered, silk wrapped around steel. You smelled it. I saw your eyes shift. My heart stopped. He knows. I don't know what you're talking about, I whispered, pushing back from the desk. My pulse thudded so loud I swore he could hear it. Rowan closed the distance between us in 3 strides. Too close. The mate bond surged, heat sparking where his presence brushed mine. My wolf pressed against my skin, frantic to be near him. But I couldn't afford that weakness. He leaned in, his breath brushing my cheek. Stop hiding, Lila. You're not just a nurse. You're like me. The words tore through me. Half of me wanted to deny it, to shove him back, to scream no. The other half wanted to melt into him, to surrender to the bond. I shook my head, desperate. You don't understand. I understand more than you think, he cut in. His jaw tightened, a storm flickering behind his eyes. The rogues aren't random. Whoever's taking control of them, they know about you. And if I'm right. He trailed off, his gaze raking over me as though memorizing every fragile piece. This isn't just about the children going missing. It's about you. The words slammed into me like a blow. My hands trembled. Me? Why would rogues care about me? Rowan's silence was worse than any answer. The room felt too small, too heavy with secrets. And in that silence, for the first time, I realized Rowan wasn't just warning me. He was hiding something. Something that lived in the shadows of his silver eyes. And my wolf, traitorous and unbound, whispered the truth I didn't want to believe. Whatever secret Rowan carried, it was tied to me. Sleep never came. Even after Rowan left the clinic, his words replayed like a curse. It's about you. By morning, my nerves were frayed raw. I brewed coffee strong enough to peel paint, shoved myself into scrubs, and told myself to focus on patience, on the ordinary lives I clung to like a shield. But ordinary didn't last. The bell over the clinic door chimed, and a woman stumbled in. Her face was pale, eyes wide with terror. In her hands, clutched so tight her knuckles blanched, was a small red sneaker. "My son," she gasped, her voice breaking. "Evan. He never came home last night." My stomach dropped. The child was only 7. Before I could move, the door opened again, and Rowan walked in. Not in uniform, again, but his presence swallowed the room all the same. The mother turned to him like he was salvation. "Sheriff Hale, you have to find him," she cried. Rowan's jaw tightened. He reached for the shoe, studying the scuff marks, the faint mud caked on the sole. His silver eyes flicked toward me, held too long. Something inside me twisted, because the bond flared hot, pulling me toward him, demanding I trust him, lean on him. And yet beneath it, a darker whisper lingered. He knows more than he says. "Where was he last seen?" Rowan asked. His voice was calm, steady, like steel wrapped in velvet. The woman sobbed. "By the creek, the one near Pine Hollow." My chest constricted. The same place where the bodies had been found. Rowan closed his fist around the shoe, his eyes flashing silver for the briefest second. He masked it quickly, but I saw it. And worse, I felt it. The echo of his wolf through the bond, brushing against mine. Dangerous. Familiar. He turned to me suddenly. "Come with me." I froze. "What? Why?" Rowan's gaze didn't waver. "Because you can track him. Better than any deputy I've got. Stop pretending you can't feel it." The room spun. He was asking me to expose myself, to unchain the very part of me I'd buried for a decade. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "I can't. You don't understand." His hand brushed mine, just barely, but the spark ignited like fire through my veins. His voice dropped low, meant for me alone. "I understand the bond, Lila. You're mine, and I won't let rogues touch what's mine." The words sent shivers through me, tangled with fear and longing. Because the bond wanted to believe him, wanted to sink into his promise of protection. But another part of me, the part that remembered the fire, the blood, the screams of the past, knew better. Rowan Hale wasn't just a savior, he was hiding something, and whatever it was, it had teeth. The woods had always felt alive to me, whispering, watching. Tonight, under the weight of Rowan's command, they felt like they were holding their breath. I should have refused. Should have let him and his deputies chase the trail while I stayed safe in the sterile walls of the clinic. But the mate bond doesn't let you refuse. It pulls. It insists. And so, against every vow I'd made, I followed Rowan into Pine Hollow. The deputies fanned out, flashlights cutting thin beams through the dark. But Rowan kept me close. Too close. His hand brushed my back when I stumbled, steadying me like I belonged there beside him. Every brush of contact lit fire under my skin. My wolf pressed harder, snarling to be let free. "Breathe," Rowan murmured, his voice rough velvet. "Close your eyes if you need to. Let the scent guide you." I hesitated. 10 years I'd locked my wolf away. 10 years since I'd trusted her. But then I thought of the little boy's sneaker, the way his mother's voice cracked on his name. So I closed my eyes, drew in a breath, and the world shifted. Scents sharpened, pine sap, damp moss, the faint metallic tang of blood. But beneath it, faint and fragile, was another trail. Sweat, fear, and the small, distinct sweetness of a child. My eyes snapped open. My chest tightened. He came this way. Rowan's gaze flickered, silver catching in the beam of his flashlight. Pride, or possession, flared there. Good girl. The words sank into me, dangerous and warm. We moved deeper, the trail twisting between thick trunks. The deputies' voices faded until it was just us. The crack of branches underfoot, the thud of my pulse, the whisper of Rowan's breath too close behind me. Then I froze. A tree stood ahead, its bark shredded by claws. The mark was deliberate. A jagged symbol burned into the wood with blood smeared deep into the grooves. My scar ached. Rowan's face hardened. He stepped forward, blocking me from it like his body could shield me from the truth. But I'd already seen it. Recognition stirred in my gut, cold and sharp. You know what that means, don't you? I whispered. Rowan didn't answer. His silence was worse than any lie. The air grew too still, too silent. My wolf bristled, hackles rising under my skin. And for the first time in 10 years, I let her slip closer to the surface, my eyes burning with a faint golden glow. Rowan's breath hitched. His hand lifted as if to touch me, claim me. But just then, a cry echoed through the woods, high, terrified, a child's voice. Help! I bolted toward it without thinking. Branches clawed my arms, roots snagged my shoes. My wolf surged, guiding me through the dark, and Rowan was right behind me, his footsteps pounding, his presence a storm I couldn't outrun. We would find the boy, but with every step, dread coiled tighter. Because whatever waited in the shadows of these woods wasn't just rogue hunger. It was Rowan's secret, bleeding closer with every heartbeat. The child's cry tore through the forest like a thread of hope and a trap. Evan, I shouted, crashing through underbrush, my wolf's senses burning awake after years of silence. Every scent, every sound sharpened to blades. His fear was everywhere, sharp and sour in the air. I burst into a clearing. There he was, Evan. Small, shaking, his shirt torn, dirt streaked across his face. His tiny hands clutched the trunk of a fallen tree like it was the only thing keeping him tethered. Evan, it's okay, I whispered, dropping to my knees. My wolf surged, desperate to soothe him. I'm here. But then I smelled it. Another scent. Musky. Wild. Rogue Rowan slammed into the clearing a second later, flashlight cutting the dark. His body went rigid, his jaw clenched tight. He smelled it too. The bushes shifted. A shadow slipped between the trees, low and fast. A growl vibrated through the clearing, feral and hungry. Rowan shoved me back, his arm flung across my chest. Stay behind me! But my wolf roared inside me. No. The rogue lunged from the tree line, eyes glowing, fangs bared, claws slicing the air. Evan screamed. I didn't think. I couldn't. My wolf broke through. My hands slammed against the ground, nails lengthening, bones snapping with a pain so sharp it ripped a cry from my throat. My vision flooded gold. And then I was moving, half shifted, claws raking, body faster than I remembered it could be. I collided with the rogue midair, the force of the impact rattling through my bones. We rolled, teeth and claws and blood. His stench filled my nose, his weight crushing me down. But then he froze. His gaze locked on me, recognition flickering. A snarl twisted into something almost like fear. And then Rowan was there. He shifted so fast it blurred. One moment a man, the next a wolf of storm-gray fur and silver eyes. Larger than the rogue, stronger. His jaws clamped around its throat, dragging it off me with a brutal twist. The rogue collapsed, bleeding and gasping, before it staggered back into the trees, retreating into the night. The clearing went still. My chest heaved, my claws trembled. And across from me, Rowan stood in his wolf form, fur bristling, blood dripping from his muzzle. He looked at me. No. Through me. Mate bond thrumming wild, fierce, undeniable. Slowly, painfully, he shifted back. His chest rose, bare and slick with sweat, his breath ragged. "You shouldn't have done that," he rasped, voice raw. "You weren't supposed to shift." I staggered back, clutching my chest. "You wanted me to. You pushed me into this." "No." His eyes burned silver, darker than the night around us. "I wanted to protect you, to keep you hidden. But now," his gaze dropped, storming with something I couldn't name. "Now they'll know you're alive." My blood went cold. Who will? Rowan's silence stretched too long, his jaw locked, his fists clenched, and that was when I knew. The rogues hadn't been hunting the town. They hadn't even been hunting Evan. They'd been hunting me. And Rowan had known all along. Evan's sobs echoed behind me, small and terrified. He was alive. That should have been enough. But all I could see was Rowan, standing in the clearing, half shadow, half man, his bare chest slick with sweat, blood streaked across his jaw. His silver eyes burned into mine like chains. "You knew," I whispered. My voice shook with more than exhaustion. "You knew they weren't after him." "They were after me." Rowan exhaled slowly, steadying himself, but his silence was damning. "Say it," I demanded, stepping closer despite the tremble in my legs. "Say it, Rowan." "You've been lying." His jaw clenched, muscles ticking. "Not lying. Protecting." My laugh was hollow, bitter. "Protecting? You dragged me into the woods, pushed me to shift, and now every rogue in this territory knows I'm alive." His hand shot out, gripping my wrist, not cruel, but firm. His touch ignited fire through my veins, the mate bond flaring so hot it stole my breath. "You don't understand, Lila," he said, voice low, desperate. "If I'd told you everything, you would have run. And running would have gotten you killed." I yanked free, my wolf snarling under my skin. "Then tell me now." For the first time, something flickered in his expression. A crack in the mask. Regret. Guilt. Hunger. "I wasn't always sheriff," he admitted, his voice barely more than a rasp. "Before this town, before the badge, I led them." My heart plummeted. "The rogues?" He nodded once. Sharp. Broken. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. "You!" My voice caught, breaking. "You're the reason they're here. The reason they know me." Rowan stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, the scent of pine smoke and leather pulling me in, despite every instinct screaming to stay away. "I left them," he growled. "I walked away from that life, from that blood." But they don't forgive betrayal. They've been waiting, watching, and now. His eyes softened, flicking over my face like I was something fragile he couldn't stop touching. Now they'll use you to get to me. My chest ached, torn between fury and the bond clawing at me. So I'm just collateral? Another mistake in your trail of destruction? His voice sharpened, fierce, almost feral. No, you're my mate, and I will burn every last rogue to ash before I let them touch you. The vow shuddered through me, hot and possessive. My wolf trembled, aching to believe him. But another part of me whispered a darker truth. Rowan wasn't just my protector. He was the reason I was in danger at all. And the bond? It was the cruelest betrayal of all, tying me to the man who had once led the monsters hunting me now. I couldn't breathe. The clearing was too small, Rowan's presence too big, his confession still ringing in my skull. He led them, the rogues, the monsters who'd haunted these woods for years, and yet my wolf, traitorous and wild, pressed against me with a single truth. Mate. I shoved the thought down, clutched Evan tighter to my chest. His small body trembled against me, reminding me why I couldn't collapse under Rowan's storm. We're going back, I said, my voice sharp enough to cut. Now. Rowan didn't argue. He turned, scanning the tree line, his jaw taut. But even as he let us out, his gaze kept flicking back to me, watching, measuring, wanting. Back at the edge of the woods, a deputy rushed to take Evan, wrapping him in a blanket. The boy's mother sobbed into his hair, clutching him like she'd never let go again. Relief shuddered through me. At least one good thing had come of tonight. But as the deputies dispersed, Rowan caught my arm, pulling me aside into the shadows. His voice was low, rough. Don't tell them what you saw. Don't tell them what I was. My pulse slammed. You think I owe you silence? His grip tightened, not hurting, but binding. His eyes burned silver, desperate. Not silence. Time. Give me time, Lila, to prove I'm not the man I was, to prove what I feel for you is real. The bond flared at his words, my chest aching with a hunger I hated. I should have pulled away, should have spat the truth in his face. But instead, I froze, caught in the storm of him. Rowan, my voice cracked. How do I trust you? How do I trust fate when it tied me to the man who led the very monsters tearing children from their homes? He swallowed hard, his thumb brushing unconsciously against my wrist. Because I walked away from them. Because I chose this town. Because I chose you. Before I even knew you were mine. My breath hitched. The words slid deep, dangerous, tempting. But before I could answer, the night split open. A howl, long, vicious, echoing through the pines. Then another, and another, surrounding us. Deputies shouted, guns drawn, flashlights swinging wildly. Evan's mother screamed, clutching her boy. Rowan's entire body went rigid. His wolf surged so close his voice was nearly a growl. They're here. The bond burned between us, a tether I couldn't cut. And as the first rogue burst from the tree line, silver eyes gleaming, I realized Rowan's secret wasn't just his to bear anymore. It was mine too. The air between us was thick, too heavy with things unsaid. Rowan's hand still circled my wrist, not hard, but firm enough that I could feel the beat of his pulse under his skin. Strong, steady, anchored in me, like it had always belonged there. "Let me explain," he said, his voice hoarse. "The rogues weren't always monsters. Not at first. They were outcasts. Wolves who refused the councils, the packs, the chains of tradition. I thought I could lead them somewhere better." Bitterness laced his words, his jaw tightening. "But power, it twists things. They wanted blood, control, chaos. And when I tried to pull back, to lead them toward something different, they turned on me." I stared at him, my chest aching. "And you just expect me to believe you're not still one of them?" His eyes flared silver, raw and vulnerable. I walked away. I swore never to spill innocent blood again. That's why I took the badge. That's why I fight to keep this town safe. To make up for the things I can't erase. The mate bond surged, my wolf keening at the truth woven through his voice. My heart wanted to believe him. But my scars, they remembered fire and screams, the kind of ruin wolves always brought. "You should have told me," I whispered. "If we're mates, if fate really meant this, then you should have trusted me from the start." Rowan's hand trembled where it held me. "And if I had, would you still be standing here? Or would you have run so far I'd never find you again?" Silence wrapped around us. His words hit too close, because part of me knew he was right. And that was when the first howl shattered the night. Long, low, hunting. Rowan's head snapped toward the trees, every muscle going rigid. More howls rose in answer, circling the clearing. Deputies cursed, flashlights swinging, weapons raised. Rowan's grip dropped from my wrist, his voice shifting from desperate to steel. "They've found us." And the moment stretched, fragile and dangerous, before the forest erupted. The rogue burst from the tree line like a shadow given teeth, claws flashing in the strobe of headlights. Deputies opened fire, the crack of bullets deafening, but the wolf moved fast, too fast. "Get down," Rowan barked, shoving me behind him. His body blurred, bones snapping, fur ripping through skin until a storm-gray wolf stood where the sheriff had been. The sight stole my breath. He was massive, his silver eyes burning with a fury that was all Rowan, all mate. But another rogue leapt from the opposite side, aiming for Evan and his mother. My wolf lunged inside me, ripping at the chains I'd wrapped around her for a decade. I didn't think. I shifted. Pain tore through me, a white-hot wave as bones cracked, claws erupted, fur swept across my skin. My vision burned gold as the world sharpened into scent and sound and instinct. My wolf exploded free. And gods, she was hungry. I launched at the rogue, my claws raking across his flank. He yelped, snapping back, but I was faster. Years of suppression bled into raw, savage power, every strike fueled by fury and the bond blazing between me and Rowan. Rowan hit the other rogue with brutal precision, his jaws clamping down hard. Together we drove them back, two wolves moving as one. Not allies, not even enemies. Something worse, something fated. The last rogue staggered, blood dripping from his side. He paused at the tree line, his glowing eyes locking on me. And in them, I saw it. Recognition. Calculation. Found you. Then he vanished into the woods, melting into the dark. Silence slammed into the clearing. Deputies panted, guns shaking, their eyes wide with disbelief. Evan sobbed into his mother's arms, alive but trembling. And I stood there, fur bristling, chest heaving, staring at Rowan. His wolf turned toward me, blood slicking his muzzle, silver eyes burning. The bond thrummed between us, fierce and undeniable. And for the first time, fighting side by side, I felt the truth in my bones. Rowan and I weren't just mates. We were a weapon, and the rogues knew it. By morning, the whole town knew. Whispers ran like wildfire through the diner, the clinic, even the church pews. Rogues had attacked within sight of the sheriff's deputies. 2 wolves had fought them off. One was Rowan Hale, the other, me. I kept my head down as I walked Main Street, but the stares followed. People who'd known me as Nurse Arden suddenly looked at me like a stranger. Too sharp. Too long. By the time I reached the council hall, my skin was crawling. The pack council wasn't large. 5 elders who clung to tradition like scripture. They sat behind their oak table, the air thick with incense and judgment. And Rowan stood at their center, shoulders squared, his jaw a clenched stone. I slipped in quietly, hoping to disappear into the back. But his eyes found me instantly, silver gray burning across the room. The bond pulled, tightening my chest until it ached. "Sheriff Hale," Elder Crane said, his voice sharp as brittle glass. "We hear troubling reports. Rogues on our doorstep. Wolves shifting in town." His gaze cut to me. "Including those we did not know lived among us." My throat closed. Rowan's voice stayed steady, controlled. Nurse Arden acted to protect a child. That is all. "Protection," Elder Crane echoed, leaning forward. "Or exposure? If rogues know what she is, how long before more arrive? Before blood spills in these streets?" Every word was a blade, and Rowan stood like a shield, taking them. But I saw it. The flicker in his jaw, the storm in his eyes. He wasn't just defending me, he was defending himself. Because if the council ever learned what he'd confessed to me, that he had once led the rogues, his badge, his pack, his life would burn. "Enough," Rowan growled, his voice rippling with alpha command. "The rogues are my responsibility. I will handle them." Elder Crane's eyes narrowed. "And what of the girl?" The council chamber felt smaller, suffocating. My wolf paced under my skin, ready to snap. Rowan's gaze slid to me, his voice softening even as it stayed firm. "She's under my protection." The words sank into me like fire. A vow, a claim, but also a cage. Because protection from Rowan meant silence. Secrets. Chains wrapped in the shape of safety. The council murmured among themselves, distrust simmering in every glance. Finally, Elder Crane leaned back, his tone heavy. "Then see to it, Sheriff. But if the rogues keep coming, we'll reconsider what protection truly means." The meeting broke. People filed out, whispering behind hands. Rowan moved toward me, cutting through the crowd like the tide itself. I turned to leave, desperate for air, but his hand caught mine. Firm, unyielding. "Don't run from me," he murmured, low enough only I could hear. "Not now. Not when they're circling. You're safer with me." The mate bond surged, my pulse stumbling. His touch felt like fire. His words felt like chains. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just fighting rogues. I was fighting fate itself. Night draped itself heavy over the town, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rowan's face in the council chamber, defiant, protective, and hiding something he refused to speak aloud. I needed air. space. Distance from the bond burning me alive. So I walked, past shuttered shops and dim street lamps, into the hush of the woods. My wolf stirred uneasily, but the silence seemed deeper here, like the trees themselves were holding secrets. That's when I found it. Half buried beneath the roots of a pine was a leather pouch, claw-marked and stiff with age. My fingers shook as I pulled it free. Inside, wrapped in brittle cloth, was a strip of parchment, blood-stained, marked with runes I half recognized, my mother's bloodline. The same sigils carved into the diary she'd hidden years ago, before the fire that destroyed everything. My stomach dropped. The words scrawled across it were jagged, smeared, but clear enough. By oath and by blood, Rowan Hale leads the Broken Fang. Until the bond is fulfilled, we hunt what was promised. My chest constricted. The rogues weren't just random predators. They weren't just old shadows from Rowan's past. They were tied to me, to my mother, to some unfinished betrayal written in blood long before I'd met him. A howl shattered the night. I spun, clutching the pouch, as glowing eyes lit the tree line. 3 rogues stepped into the clearing, their fangs gleaming, their hunger focused on me. "Found you," one rasped, voice guttural, almost human. My wolf lunged, ready to tear free, but before I could shift, Rowan exploded from the shadows. He was fury-made flesh, shifting mid-stride, his wolf form colliding with the first rogue so hard the ground shook. Claws slashed, teeth sank, the clearing filled with snarls and blood. The second rogue darted toward me. Instinct took over. I shifted, my body breaking and rebuilding in a rush of fire and bone. My wolf leapt, claws raking, jaws snapping. Rowan fought at my side, brutal and precise. Together, we drove them back, our bond crackling like lightning with every strike. But the third rogue didn't fight. He just stood at the tree line, his glowing eyes locked on me. "You don't even know what you are," he hissed. But he does. Ask your mate what debt his blood still owes. Then he vanished into the trees, his laughter lingering like poison. Rowan tore down the last rogue, his muzzle dripping crimson. He shifted back, chest heaving, eyes wild. I stood in the dirt, clutching the blood-marked parchment, my claws trembling as I shifted back too. My voice was raw. "What debt, Rowan? What does this mean?" His gaze flicked to the parchment in my hands, and for the first time, I saw fear in his silver eyes. The clearing stank of blood and smoke. My lungs burned, my claws still trembled from the shift, but nothing rattled me more than the parchment in my hands. The oath, the runes, my mother's bloodline. "Rowan," I rasped, my voice shaking with fury and disbelief. "Tell me this isn't real." He didn't answer. He just stood there, his chest rising hard, silver eyes locked on the stained parchment, like it was the knife that would finally cut him down. "Say something," I shouted, my voice cracking, "because if you don't, then everything the rogue said is true." Finally, he spoke. Low. Broken. "It is true." My heart slammed, a hollow ache tearing through me. Rowan stepped closer, his voice rough with confession. "Years ago, your mother came to me. She wasn't just some wandering wolf like she wanted people to believe. She was powerful, Lila. Too powerful. And she made a deal. My stomach twisted. What kind of deal? His jaw clenched. An oath in blood. She promised her bloodline, her heir, to the rogues, to bind them to her cause. But when she tried to break it, when she chose a different path, they turned feral. They demanded payment. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. Payment. Me. His eyes closed, agony etched in every line of his face. I was their leader then. I signed the oath. I swore to deliver you to them when the time came. The words split me open. You were going to give me to them? My voice tore raw, disbelief shaking every syllable. Rowan surged forward, his hand seizing mine, his voice desperate. I was going to, but then I met you. Before the bond, before I knew what fate had done, I saw you in this town, and I couldn't. I won't. Not now. Not ever. The bond flared, burning between us, cruel and unrelenting. My wolf keened, pulling me toward him even as my human heart recoiled. You lied to me, I whispered, tears stinging hot. Every time you looked at me, every time you touched me, you knew. Rowan's grip trembled, his eyes storming with anguish. I knew. And God's help me, I'd lie again if it meant keeping you safe. Because the truth, Lila, the truth is what will break us. His words seared into me, jagged and raw. The man fate had bound me to, the man who swore to protect me, was the same one who had once sworn to deliver me. The parchment burned between my fingers like it carried the weight of my life. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I belonged to Rowan or to the rogues still waiting in the dark. I wanted to scream, to claw the truth from my skin and bury it in the dirt where it belonged. Rowan's confession sat like poison in my chest. You signed me away, I said, my voice breaking. Before I was even old enough to understand what I was, you signed my life into their claws. Rowan's eyes burned, desperate. I was young, reckless. I believed your mother when she said the oath would unite us all, that it would end the councils and free every wolf chained by bloodlines. I thought I was saving us, Lila. Saving you. I shook my head, tears hot on my cheeks. You don't get to call that saving. You don't get to call that love. The mate bond surged like a cruel reminder, tightening my chest, whispering that I was his and he was mine, no matter how deep the betrayal ran. My wolf trembled, torn between rage and longing. Rowan stepped closer, his hand trembling as it hovered near my cheek, but didn't dare touch. I was wrong. I've spent every day since trying to atone. I became sheriff to protect, not to destroy. And when I saw you again, his voice broke. I swore I'd never let them have you. But the rogue's laughter split the night. It came from the trees, sharp and guttural, echoing like a curse. My head snapped toward the sound, my wolf bristling. Shadows shifted at the tree line. Dozens of glowing eyes blinked into view, circling, tightening. Rowan's jaw locked, his body rigid. They're here. Deputies scrambled, shouting, rifles raised. But the rogues didn't charge. They prowled, patient, their growls vibrating through the ground. And then one stepped forward. Larger, older, his fur scarred, his eyes burning with cruel certainty. You broke your vow, Hale, the rogue snarled, voice half human, half beast. The blood debt is ours. Give her to us, and your town lives. Refuse, and we'll burn it to ash. My heart slammed. The parchment in my hand felt heavier, binding. A debt written in blood, etched across my fate. Rowan's wolf surged beneath his skin, his voice a growl. "You'll touch her over my dead body." The rogue sneered. "Then so be it." The rogues erupted from the trees. Rowan shoved me back, shifting mid-leap, his storm-gray wolf colliding with the first attacker. Deputies fired, but the woods filled with snarls and chaos. Too many bodies, too much blood. I shifted, claws tearing free, my wolf howling with rage as I lunged at a rogue barreling toward a deputy. My jaws closed around its throat, hot copper flooding my tongue. But even as I fought, even as Rowan and I tore through them like a storm bound by fate, the truth screamed inside me. I wasn't just their target. I was the prize. The rogues weren't stopping until they had me. And no matter how hard Rowan fought, part of me couldn't shake the question tearing me apart. Was he protecting me out of love? Or out of guilt for the vow he could never undo? The woods burned in sound, snarls, gunfire, the wet rip of flesh. Pines shook as bodies slammed trunks. Headlights carved frantic halos, catching teeth and fur and the white flash of my own claws. Rowan's wolf cut through the melee like a storm given shape. Storm gray, silver-eyed, all precision and fury. Every time he hit, I felt it, a pull in my chest like the bond had hooked our hearts with barbed wire. A rogue lunged for my flank. I spun, low and fast, and took his foreleg in my jaws. Bones snapped. He yelped. Then another hit me from the side, driving me into the dirt. The breath blasted out of me. Hot saliva sprayed my face. His fangs sought my throat. "Move, Lila!" My wolf surged. I raked up with both hind legs, claws like knives. The rogue shrieked, lifted off me, and Rowan slammed him midair, broke his neck with one savage twist. He landed over me, huge and shaking. A question in his eyes I felt more than saw. "Are you hurt?" I pushed to my paws and touched my muzzle to his for one heartbeat. "I'm here," before the trees spat out something worse. Not a wolf, a man, tall, scarred, cold eyes like river ice. He walked through the fight untouched, and the roars around us dipped as if the forest itself was listening. "Sheriff Hale," he called, voice carrying clean and cruel over chaos. "You keep breaking your promises." Rowan shifted in an instant, fur ripping back into skin, breath heaving, blood smeared his jaw like war paint. "Orion," he growled. The name froze the air in my lungs, a shard of memory I didn't own. I shifted too, skin prickling, every nerve on fire. Orion's gaze cut to me. The air. His mouth curved, not a smile. "Pretty. Your mother was right to hide you. Shame she ran out of places to run." My scar burned along my ribs, heat searing like the night of the fire. "What do you want?" I forced out. "What is owed?" He lifted a hand. Between his fingers gleamed a sliver of bone etched in runes, the same jagged script as the parchment. "Blood calls blood. You belong to the oath until the oath is satisfied." Rowan stepped in front of me. "She belongs to no one." "Then why does she wear my mark in her ribs?" Orion's eyes glittered. "A brand the night your mother burned her own blood to keep you hidden? Clever trick, Sheriff. Hide the girl in plain sight, make her small, make her quiet. Teach her to fear the wolf that could break us." His gaze slid to me like a knife. "You have no idea what you are, do you?" The ground trembled under my feet before I realized it was my own heartbeat. The bond to Rowan thrummed hot. Beneath it, another hum rose, colder, older, as if the trees whispered my name back to me. Deputies shouted. More rogues crept from the line of trees, encircling headlights and rifles, pinning us in a ring of teeth. Rowan didn't look away from Orion. "This ends tonight." "Oh, it does," Orion said softly. "On your knees." He drove the bone shard into the dirt. The clearing lit in a blood-red pulse. Sigils ignited across the ground like veins, concentric rings of runes threading outward beneath our feet. The same shapes from my mother's diary. The same shapes carved into that tree in Pine Hollow. They flared and seized like a net. And when the light hit my skin, the world tilted. Pain lanced my ribs. I gasped and clutched my side as heat scalded the scar. Lines rose under my palm, the brand blazing to life, runic strokes glowing through my flesh from the inside out. Rowan grabbed me, arm cinched around my waist. "Lila, stay with me." The sigils climbed our legs. Deputies stumbled as the light nipped boots and sizzled out. The trap wasn't for them. It was for us. For me. Orion's voice slid through the heat. "Blood claims blood. Come to heel, girl, and your sheriff keeps his town." The bond thrummed, a frantic drum. My wolf snarled, slamming against the burning lines like a caged thing. I tasted iron. I didn't know if it was blood in my mouth or fury in my lungs. "Don't listen," Rowan said. Forehead pressed to mine, breath ragged. "Look at me. You're mine. You're not theirs." The word mine should have soothed. It ripped me open instead. "Signed me away," my mind hissed. "Now he claims me to keep me from the hands he promised me to." The paradox tore through my chest. Love and betrayal locked teeth. Another pulse. The world stuttered white. When it cleared, Rowan was on his knees, one hand braced in the burning sigils, smoke curling off his skin. "Let him go," I choked, clawing at the light. It bit my fingers. The scent of my own seared skin made my stomach pitch. Orion tilted his head, bored. "Kneel, white blood, and the pain stops." I didn't kneel. I dragged air through my teeth and reached for the only thing I still trusted. The ghost of my mother's voice, the memory of her handwriting, the way she had whispered over bowls of herbs and salt. Every bond can bind, but every bond can break. Every lock has a key, and the key is always blood. Blood. I lifted my palm to my mouth and bit down hard. Copper filled my tongue. Warmth spilled over my wrist. The sigils leapt when the drops fell, greedy. Between the rings, a blank space glowed, an absence shaped like a door. I didn't think. I pressed my bleeding hand flat into the empty center and spoke the first words that seared my mind. "Blood to blood. Not yours." The clearing boomed. The red net bucked. Runes sputtered and blackened where my blood touched. Orion's eyes widened a fraction, then sharpened to knives. "Stop her!" 3 rogues sprang. Rowan was already moving, half shift, bones cracking, claws surging. He met the first mid-pounce and hurled him across the hood of a cruiser. The second hit my side. I pivoted and drove an elbow into his throat, then raked my nails, half claws, half hands, down his face. He reeled. The third reached for my wrist, aiming for the bleeding hand. "Lila!" Rowan shouted, and the warning turned to a roar as a fourth wolf blindsided him. I lunged toward him, but Orion stepped between us, casual as a man in a doorway. He smelled like winter and graves. You can't break what you don't understand. Watch me, I spat, and slammed my bloody palm into the ground again. This time I didn't call on my mother. I called on me. On 10 years of being small, of swallowing the wolf, of pretending the quiet life could ever fit. On every patient's pulse I held, every stitch I tied, every night I stood in windows begging the moon to forget me. On the first moment the mate bond punched my lungs empty and made me hope anyway. Blood to mine, I said, and the last word wasn't a whisper. It was a claim. The runes screamed. They twisted, lines unthreading, rings unraveling and snapping back like cut sinew. Heat whooshed out of the circle, sucking breath and sound. The sigils climbed my arm and then inverted, spilling light back into the dirt as ash. The brand at my ribs flared, then dimmed. The pain guttered. Rowan sucked air like a drowning man breaking surface. For one heartbeat, the clearing held its breath. Then Orion smiled, slow and bright and terrible. Good, he said. Wake up, little key. The rogues surged all at once. Rowan dragged me up, blood slicking his side, and we moved together without thinking. Left, break a knee, right, tear a hamstring, spin as one body. The bond didn't hum, it howled, our nerves lit end to end. We cut a path toward the tree line, but Orion didn't move to stop us. He watched, measuring, counting my breaths. A shape barreled out of the dark, massive, scar-pelted, jaws wide. I shoved Rowan aside and took the hit full in the chest. The world flipped. My back smashed a stump. Stars burst behind my eyes. The wolf loomed over me, breath hot and rank. He struck. A gray streak hit him from the side, Rowan, taking the bite meant for my throat. Fangs sank into Rowan's shoulder, deep enough that I heard the crunch. He didn't make a sound, just drove his own teeth into the attacker's spine until it cracked. The rogue collapsed. Rowan staggered and half-shifted, hand clamping his shoulder. Blood flooded through his fingers. I crawled to him, everything else blurring. Rowan, dash, dash. He caught my face in his bloody palm, eyes blown wide, fever bright. Don't stop. You almost broke it. Almost? His mouth twisted into a grim smile. Almost is more than anyone else ever did. Behind him, Orion raised the bone shard again. The runes along its length pulsed hungrily, answering mine. Next pulse will take the whole street, he said, bored again. Shall we gamble the diner, Sheriff? The school? The pretty clinic where our little nurse hides her claws? Rowan's gaze flicked to the lights of town beyond the pines. The set of his jaw said he was counting people. Doors, names. He swayed. He wouldn't make the next charge. Take me, I said, and the words ripped out raw. Rowan's head snapped back to me. No. Take me, I said to Orion, louder. Every deputy, every rogue, every tree listened. Let them go. Call your wolves off. Stop the pulse. I go, and you leave this town standing. Lila, don't, Rowan snarled, trying to rise, failing as his knee buckled. Orion studied me. You think you can bargain where your mother failed? I think you want what's in my blood more than you want to waste bullets playing with his. Silence. Even the wind held still. Orion tapped the shard against his palm, then angled it toward the ground again. Come then, he said softly. Prove you understand the oath you tried to break. I looked at Rowan. He looked at me like a man drowning looks at a shore he can't swim to. Trust me, I whispered, and the words hurt worse than the brand. He shook his head once, a denial and a vow and a prayer. I stood. My legs shook. My ribs burned. The brand throbbed, but under it, something new steadied, like a second pulse that beat in my name. I took one step toward Orion, then another, past the line where headlights stuttered and the forest took its breath back. Rowan's voice broke behind me. Lila. I didn't turn. If I saw his face, I'd run back. If I ran back, the town burned. 3 steps from Orion, the bone shard flared brighter, and the red moon slid out from behind the clouds like an open eye. Good girl, Orion murmured. My wolf bared her teeth. The air surged, pressure, heat, like a storm collapsing inward. Choice slammed up from the earth. Go and save them now. Stay and bleed them later. I lifted my hand, the one I'd blooded, the one that had made the ring scream, and pressed my palm to the shard's light. The world went white, and everything fell. Light, heat, screams that weren't mine. When my vision cleared, I was no longer standing in the clearing, or maybe I was, but the trees around me shimmered with firelight instead of moonlight. My ribs burned, my scar glowing like a brand pressed fresh to skin. And there, through the smoke, I saw her. My mother. Not as she'd been when I was a child, soft hands and tired eyes, but cloaked in silver fur. Her wolf form towering, runes burning across her pelt like living tattoos. She was surrounded by rogues, their eyes hungry, their bodies bowed as if she was a queen. You promised us, one of them rasped, by blood and by bond. Your heir will be ours. And I heard her voice, clear and sharp, even though her lips never moved. Forgive me, Lila. I staggered back, choking on air that wasn't real. The vision flickered, twisted. Then Rowan appeared, younger, harder, his silver eyes colder. He stood beside her, blade dripping red, the oath burning across his arm in the same runes that scarred my ribs. He hadn't been forced. He hadn't been tricked. He'd chosen. The vision snapped. I gasped awake, dirt pressing into my palms, the clearing swimming back into focus. The bone shard lay cracked beside me, smoking. Orion was gone. The rogues were gone. Only bodies, human and wolf alike, littered the edge of the clearing. And Rowan. He was on his knees in front of me, blood slicking his shoulder, his hands gripping mine like they were the only thing tethering him to earth. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his temple. But his eyes, God's, his eyes, were locked on me like nothing else existed. Lila, he rasped. Stay with me. My throat closed. The visions clawed inside me, whispering. He was there. He signed it. He chose. I ripped my hands free, staggering back. You lied to me. His face crumpled. What did you see? My mother, I spat, the taste of ash thick in my mouth. And you. You weren't forced. You weren't protecting anyone. You stood with her. You promised me to them. Rowan's jaw clenched. Pain tore across his expression, raw and unmasked. I was young. Stupid. Hungry for power. She told me the oath would change everything, that your bloodline was the key to a new order. I believed her. But when she betrayed them, when she tried to run, I broke with her. I left them. You left them, I echoed, my chest hollow. But you never undid it. You never told me. You just waited for the bond to chain me to you so I'd forgive what you'd done." His breath hitched. "No. I stayed because I swore I'd never let them touch you. Not again. Not while I breathe." Tears blurred my vision. My wolf howled inside me, aching, torn between fury and the bond that pulsed like a wound we couldn't close. Behind Rowan, the red moon glared through the clouds, cold and merciless. And in its light, I realized something sharp and terrible. I couldn't break the bond, but I could break him. The clearing was too quiet. Deputies dragged the wounded back, headlights flickered weak, and the red moon glared down like it was waiting for me to choose. Rowan staggered to his feet, blood seeping through the torn shirt at his shoulder. He reached for me, hesitant, trembling, but I stepped back. "No," I whispered. My voice cracked, but it carried. "No more lies. No more half-truths. Tell me what you're still hiding, Rowan. All of it. Now." His chest rose, fell. His jaw tightened. Then, with a ragged breath, he let the mask drop. "When your mother swore the oath, I thought I was binding a future. A new pack, stronger, free of the council's chains. I signed in blood because I believed her. I believed in her." His eyes found mine, burning silver. "But the truth is, Lila, I didn't just betray you. I betrayed them. When she tried to run, I killed the wolves who still followed her. I buried their bodies under Pine Hollow. The ground tilted. My mother's betrayal. His betrayal. 2 knives crossed over my life. They never forgave me," he said hoarsely. "And now, they'll only stop when they have you. Unless we break the oath together." The bond pulsed, hot and cold at once, the chain between us pulling tight. My wolf shuddered, whispering, "Mate," even as my heart howled traitor. "How?" I demanded. "How do we break something sealed in blood?" Rowan's gaze flicked to the shard, cracked but still glowing faintly in the dirt. "Blood bound it. Blood must end it. But it'll take more than yours. It'll take mine, too." My stomach dropped. "You mean—" He nodded once, grim. "A sacrifice. If my blood pays the debt, it ends. You'll be free. They'll have nothing left to hunt." "No." The word ripped from me raw, furious. "You don't get to die for me, Rowan. You don't get to clean your sins with blood and leave me with the ashes." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "Better me than you." The rogue's howl split the night. Orion's voice echoed from the trees, smooth and cruel. "Choose, little heir. His blood or yours. Either way, the oath is fed." The runes along my scar seared, brighter than fire, pulling me toward the shard. My knees buckled. Rowan caught me before I hit the ground, his arms strong even as his body shook. "Look at me," he begged. "You're not theirs. You were never theirs. You're mine, and if I have to bleed out here to make sure of it, then so be it." Tears blurred my vision. The bond flared, desperate, binding. But I wasn't a girl chained to fire anymore. I shoved free, staggering toward the shard. My wolf rose inside me, fierce, unbroken. Every bond can break. Every chain has a key, and the key is always blood. I lifted my palm, still scarred from before, and pressed it to the shard's light. "Blood to mine," I whispered again. "Not his. Not theirs. Mine." The shard screamed. Red light erupted, twisting, flaring, then shattering outward. The oath's runes writhed across the dirt, snapping one by one like torn threads. A roar rippled through the forest as the rogues howled in fury, shadows scattering back into the trees. The bond burned hotter, searing, threatening to tear in two. Rowan shouted my name, his hands closing over mine, his blood dripping onto the shard beside mine. The red light flared, then guttered out. Silence. The shard lay in ashes. My scar dimmed, leaving only pale flesh. The runes were gone. The oath was broken. I collapsed to my knees, chest heaving. Rowan fell beside me, his face gray, his shoulder bleeding freely. "You did it," he rasped, voice wrecked. "Gods, Lila, you broke it." I stared at him, my vision swimming. Relief tangled with fury, love twisted with betrayal. The bond still hummed between us, fierce and undeniable. But now, it was ours, not theirs. I cupped his face with trembling hands, torn apart by the choice beating in my chest. "You're my mate," I whispered, "but you're also my betrayal. And I don't know which part of you I'll forgive." His eyes closed, a tear slipping free, silver against the blood on his cheek. "Then let me prove it. Let me spend the rest of my life proving it." The red moon slipped behind the clouds, leaving only darkness and breath and the fragile hope of morning. And in that fragile dark, I held the man who was both my destiny and my ruin. The woods were silent. For the first time in years, there were no howls threading through the pines, no claws scraping bark, no shadows waiting just beyond the tree line. The rogues were gone. The oath was ash. But peace didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into all that had burned to bring me here. I stood at the edge of Pine Hollow as dawn painted the mountains in pale gold. My body ached, my scar was tender, but the air felt different, lighter. My wolf stretched inside me, unshackled for the first time in a decade. And Rowan. He leaned against a tree, his shoulder bandaged, silver eyes fixed on me. He hadn't left my side since the fight ended, even when I'd asked for space. Maybe he didn't trust me not to run. Maybe he didn't trust himself to let me. "Town's safe," he said softly, voice roughened by exhaustion. "You broke what no one else could." I nodded, my throat tight. "And yet, the bond still holds." His lips twisted. "Some things even blood magic can't undo." Silence stretched. The bond hummed between us, fierce, aching, undeniable. I took a step closer, searching his face. "You saved me. You fought beside me. But you also betrayed me long before I ever knew you." Pain flickered across his eyes, raw and unmasked. "I'll never stop paying for that. But if you let me, I'll spend every day proving I can be more than the man who signed that oath." I wanted to believe him. The bond wanted me to. My wolf leaned toward him, hungry for the touch, the promise. But my heart wasn't ready. I brushed my fingers against his, a touch that was not forgiveness, but not rejection either. "We'll see, Rowan. The bond doesn't decide for me. Not anymore." His breath hitched, but he didn't push. He just nodded, quiet, steady, willing to wait. The sun broke fully over the horizon, scattering the last traces of night. I stood in the light, my wolf at my side. my mate in the shadows, and my fate in my own hands at last. Because the sheriff might be my secret mate, my ruin, my salvation. But my story wasn't his to write. It was mine. If you've stayed with me through betrayal, blood oaths, and bonds that refuse to break, thank you. You're the reason I can keep telling stories like this one. Make sure to subscribe to Rene's romance stories so you don't miss the next tale of love, fate, and secrets hidden in the dark. And if you were torn like me between trusting Rowan or turning away, leave a comment. Would you forgive him or walk away forever? Until next time, may your fate burn bright and your heart never bow to chains.